All right, we're going to go into a presentation before we start the bills. And we'll start out with the University of Arizona, but I want you to know we have President Robbins with us today from the University of Arizona. And we are, just so everybody out there knows, we're number 4 in basketball right now. Where's that other school?
Holding the territorial cup trophy.
Just wondering. Oh, we have to go back to football because basketball season's here now, so they have to live in the past. So
Mr. Chairman,
we all love teasing. Yes, sir.
may I make a comment before the presentation starts?
Yes, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. First of all, I want to thank staff for setting up this presentation, but mostly I want to thank the University of Arizona, and I want to thank Raytheon, who will also be presenting today. I think it's important as we sit in appropriations and we make appropriations for various items that once in a while, probably more often than not, we should be checking our homework. I think Ms. Alston addressed that on the floor today. And so today, one small piece of a budget that most of us supported, and I think after you hear it, all of us will support, is the wind tunnel at Arizona. I'm U of A. I'm not going to steal anybody's thunder. I'm going to let them carry the ball. They know what their time frame is. I'm sure they'll stand for questions as we go along. We have, I think my list is wrong. I think there's Alex. Alex, you're going to have to say your last name. Is it, anyway, and then Jesse Little is there. And then we have a gentleman, Ralph Kleestat, that will also be talking from Raytheon. And I thank you on behalf of the committee for taking time. They all had to battle the 10 coming up, and they'll battle the 10 going home. And with that, I've taken enough time. Mr. Chairman, thank you for indulging me.
You're quite welcome, Mr. Vice Chair. So we'll start out. So say your name and who you're with.
Yeah, Senator Gowan, members of the committee, thank you for having us. For the record, my name is Alex Craig. I am an assistant professor at the University of Arizona. And one of the 2 people here that are heavily involved with this wind tunnel project we'll be talking about today. I should note before I start that my colleague here, Jesse Little, has a couple of, I'll say, visual aids. It's a pair of examples of the sorts of models we put inside our wind tunnels. If you are interested in us passing those around, we're happy to.
Just give them to the page now.
So we're here to give you a very brief overview and status update on the wind tunnel infrastructure upgrades that were funded in part by the appropriations from last fiscal year. So to set the background here, leading up to this process, we had 2 wind tunnels at the University of Arizona that fit into this broader hypersonic sort of category. And by hypersonic, we typically mean objects that move more or less 5 times or more the speed of sound. So we call that Mach 5. And so we have one called the Mach 5 Ludwig tube, and then we have another one that we call the Arizona Supersonic Wind Tunnel. Now, the 2 are very similar in terms of what our goals are. They operate on a slightly different principle. But the important thing is that combined, they represent a very unique national capability that you don't find essentially at many other universities nationwide. So a few of the high points, I won't get into every little detail, but a few of the high points are that these are of a scale, a size where they're not only useful to us as university researchers, where we're sort of playing in our basic research sandbox, but they also can start to tackle the sorts of problems that companies like Raytheon are interested in. When we originally set out to sort of spec these tunnels out, we had a conversation with our friends at Raytheon and worked out the sort of sizes that would be of interest to them, where we could start to tackle those kinds of problems. From right at the beginning, this entire endeavor had working with our local partners like them in mind. And I'll note that the first facility here, the one on the top, that one was operational as of last January, and then the other one, we are just doing the finishing touches, getting it operational by roughly the end of next month. So in terms of our overall upgrade plan and the things that have been funded by the appropriations made by this committee, we've sort of got three buckets of upgrades. And I apologize, I didn't know what kind of screen we were on, and it turns out this text is a little small. But the important thing is we've got this Venn diagram. On the left side are the upgrades that go to the what we call the Arizona Supersonic Wind Tunnel, and this includes funding for completing the tunnel. I told you that it's nearly finished, and the funding from this committee has gone a long way towards finishing that process. It also includes extending that tunnel up so that it reaches this Mach 5 point, and we can call it hypersonic, in addition to some infrastructure upgrades that help it match conditions with the other tunnel. We've got a number of upgrades for the other tunnel that includes things like making it fully automatic so that our students spend more time doing the science and engineering and less time doing some of the more mundane nuts and bolts operations that go along with it. And then for both tunnels, it's going to help fund measurement capabilities that make it so that we can do things like measure lift and drag and the sorts of things that maybe the U.S. Air Force, when they fund us with a typical basic science grant, don't care so much about, but if we go to try to work with our partners at Raytheon, they care quite a bit about. And then we've got a set of shared infrastructure here in the middle, and that primarily is just air storage and air generation. So that lets us run longer and more often so that we can get more data, make a bigger dent in this nationally important hypersonics puzzle. So we have a number, I guess the only other thing I'll mention is that we have a number of different items up here. There's asterisks by a bunch of these. Those are the things that are being directly supported by the state appropriations, and this is being supplemented by a federal investment that we've also received recently to the tune of about $6.5 million to help stand all these up to the level where we're making more of an impact. So that's the quick rundown. I'll pass this off to Jesse here.
Members of the Senator Gowan, members of the committee, for the record, my name's Jesse Little, and I'm an associate professor at the University of Arizona. I'm just going to brief you on a couple key impacts for these facilities. First of which, these are a nationally unique combination of wind tunnel facilities that are among the largest tunnels at a U.S. university. We can support both fundamental and applied research in these facilities, and what I mean by that is universities are typically doing small experiments called fundamental research, but the industry primes and the government might care more about larger applied research efforts, and we're able to straddle both of those worlds and do both in these facilities. And that means we can train our students to do more relevant problems associated with industry. Currently, we have about 25 students, mixtures of grad and undergrad, working in these facilities, many of which have security clearances now. They're being supported by the university. And in addition, this has already provided some return on investment to the tune of about $6.5 million from the new University Consortium for Applied Hypersonics that's been stood up out of the DoD in the last couple of years. Without these facilities, we would not have this $6.5 million worth of funding. So we're almost at a factor of 2 ROI even before both tunnels are operational. I should also mention that this is supporting or helping us move forward with our federal investment to the tune of $6.5 million. So without the state money to get things rolling, we would not be as competitive for the federal appropriations as well. And the last thing I'll mention is to point out the balance between basic and applied research. The small geometry I passed around earlier, that fin, that's a picture of the fin in the top right under the influence of the airflow. In an applied world, we might be very interested to see what the forces and moments are like generated by that fin so that the object can be controlled. In the basic research world, we can dig into the details, and what I've shown here is a picture of the heat signature on that fin. So we can look at where the heating occurs and how we might deal with it and reduce it in certain areas. So that's a good combination of basic and applied research, and that device is actually going to be flight tested in June. So I'll turn it over to Raytheon now.
Welcome, Raytheon, and sir, if you'd introduce yourself, tell us who you're with, and I'm sure you're going to tell us a little bit about what you do and how the wind tunnels fit into your operation.
Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, my name is Ralph Kleistad. I represent Raytheon Missiles.
Maybe a little closer to the microphone, or bring it towards you a little bit.
My name is Ralph Claystad. I am at Raytheon Missiles and Defense. I am the chief engineer for all hypersonics programs there. I'm sure that many of you last September recall an event that happened where our nation flew our very first hypersonic cruise missile. And I was proud to lead that team that developed that system. That system was developed originally back in 2016, and at that time, all of the basic research that we had to do to develop it was done out of the state because there were no wind tunnels available here. We would typically go to government facilities or private institutions. The facility that is now being developed at the University of Arizona will change that game. We are already working on the second generation of hypersonic missiles, and we expect to do a significant amount of development at that facility. The chart you see in front of you shows a significant impact that Raytheon has on the Arizona economy. But the one I want to draw your attention to is the one on the upper right. These are our numbers for 2021. Last year, we hired about 1,000 new employees. We expect 2022 is going to be similar. Wind tunnel testing is one of our core disciplines, and it's an area which we use on essentially all of our products. Many of those new hires will need to be working in this area. In the past, those people would come in cold. They would have no experience doing wind tunnel testing, and it would be, I would say, a science that had to be developed over many years. This partnership and the activity that is being done in these wind tunnels will fundamentally change that. So these employees will now hit the ground running, be productive from day one, and we expect them to become the leaders as hypersonics becomes a more and more important part of not only our portfolio, but the nation's capability. So in terms of the areas that this activity is going to really bring forward, one of the most important ones is the ability to do classified testing. About half of all the work we do at Raytheon is classified, and we expect that to grow over the years. So a fundamental capability that now exists at this facility is the ability to do testing at classified levels. Another important aspect of it is the cycle time. In the past, Department of Defense weapon systems could take a decade from when the initial requirements came out till we had something out to the warfighter in the field. We need to make that faster. The goal of the DoD is to do that in 2 years. Having a wind tunnel in town that we can work with directly dramatically decreases that cycle time. So our expectation is that 2-year goal, it's going to be tough, but this is a key enabler to allow us to do that. So with that, I'd like to open up the floor to any questions that either myself or any of the University of Arizona representatives can answer for you.
Members, any questions of our guests? Senator Bradley.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair, and I don't know which one can answer this. You know, I understand the aerodynamics of the wind tunnel, what you're trying to test. How do you test for thrust? Because, I mean, obviously your wing is being thrusted. How is that engineered, tested?
Senator Gowan, Senator Borelli. Yeah, so that's generally not something we would do in this type of facility. There's a whole separate class of ground test infrastructure that would typically go into that. Various types of engine test stands, what are called direct connect facilities. There's a handful of different types that have different requirements. So generally speaking, when you're dealing with these high-speed sort of applications like this, no one ground test facility can match every set of conditions, every requirement. So we sort of have to work together with the other types of facilities around the country or with people solving these problems on supercomputers to try to piece the answer together. So that's absolutely something that is done and needs to be done. It's not the purpose of these particular facilities, though.
Senator Bradley.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair and Vice Chair. Just as a follow-up, would it be beneficial in Arizona, if we did?
Well, I mean, I would say yes. It's not something I have expertise in designing those types of facilities, but I would definitely think it would be useful to have here in the state. That's certainly another area of critical need. I mean, Ralph probably has a lot more insight to that than I do.
Write that down.
Senator Burley.
Write that down, Mr. Chair.
I'll co-sponsor to that.
It's recorded.
Members, are there any other questions for their guests? U of A, thank you. We really appreciate the work that you're doing. putting some application together with funding. And thank you, Raytheon, for being not only a partner at hypersonics, but thank you for the employment. As Senator Gowan and I, from the southern part of the state, we know all of our universities, ASU, U of A, and NAU, and even the privates you're looking for engineers left and right. We thank you. We thank you for staying here, for growing here. You're a big growth and a big part of southern Arizona. I particularly want to call out the leadership of President Bobby Robbins. Without his leadership in this area and all the areas that he's trying to say grace over at U of A, as you can tell from my comments here, I am a fan of Bobby Robbins. I think he's done wonders for U of A, and I thank the chairman for allowing this presentation. I thank you for coming up, Raytheon and U of A.
I will tell you, such a fan, Mr. President. He wanted to create a fan club for you. And he was going to be the pro tem of that.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Senator Otondo will sign up. Alston. Yeah, but Senator Otondo will as well. I've commanded that.
Thank you all.
All right.